Hey guys, how's it going? Next day being Tuesday, back on that bus trans. I kind of went inside after that last video I did and watched a bunch of videos and just gave myself a little bit more of an education on transmissions in general. And it helps somewhat, but my decision, what I decided to go do was take that transmission that was outside, that junky one I got for 50 bucks, and I figured I'd tear that one apart and just kind of use that one more for an education, and that's what I did. As you could see, the reason why I had stopped on that one, it was such a bear to get apart, it was not going to happen very easily. The brake drums didn't want to come off. I actually had the torch. See, I torched the back of the backing plate off of one. I was able to get behind it with an air impact gun, drive the one drum off, which is this side that you see here. So it's one axle, but the other side just was not having it. I did the same on that one. That drum was just not coming off. I ended up having to torch the axle right off and then torch a section out of it. And that allowed me to, on a full transmission, to get the further assembly apart. It's how they're stacked together. This would need to slide out of the way to get access to a circlip on the inside of the transmission. So I did that. I kind of saved one side, some of the pieces, but when I took it apart, you can kind of tell it had no oil in it. It was just full of water. It just looks like hell, you know. So other than picking parts out of it, it's not a transmission that I was hoping that I can just kind of go and you know, clean up, put my ring and pinion in it, and move on, but that's not going to happen. So I used it more for an education, and I started looking at kind of, here's the case of it. Here's how crappy the case is too. If you look how much crap is in it, that's all the aluminum just corroding on the inside of it from having water sit in it. So again, it's pretty punked. But here is the valve train that's in it, still together for the most part. This is your clutch, give you an idea. So when you let your foot off the clutch and it's locked to the flywheel, this shaft starts spinning. So your power is coming in on this one and it transfers through the gears, and this is your ring gear, which will go pinion, which goes to your ring gear, which drives both your axles. So this is the power coming in, this is the power going out. Everything pretty much looks the same. I looked at all the gears and everything inside there. I didn't see anything that looks better than it does on the other one or different than it looks on the other one. This was probably a functioning transmission. They drained the oil out of it. And where I got it from, I have a feeling the property probably went underwater back. It was like a barn out back and it was under a car. So that's probably what happened, is it filled up with water and killed it. But for educational purposes, again, this is first and second gear selector. Your shift fork out here would push and pull and give you first and second gear. Right now I believe it's in second because it's out, and if you pushed it the other way, again, one-handed is not very easy to do on a gummed up. Take my word for it, this will slide over and take this gap out. What I think is happening on my other transmission, I think this fork is just too far that way. Unfortunately, there's no way to kind of, you can't really see how far it is. Yeah, I guess I could put the nose cone back on it and try shifting it back into gear. But my thought is it's holding it back a little way. So what I decided to do, I know it's kind of a crude way of going about it, not, you know, but I just wanted to measure that shaft. So what I did was I just took my caliper and I ran it down the side of it so that I could see how far from the end that shaft is. Right? So you can see that the gap is all closed up. That's where it is. Now if I take that and I put it on this one, you can see the gap that's in there is a good, that's a good 1/8 inch, I'd say. Something like that. Which in turn, when you think about it, would push first gear in further, lock up first gear more. And the original transmission worked well. You just have to hold it in first gear. I didn't have any other issues with any other gears. Didn't really, and when it popped out, it didn't pop out on grind. It just popped right out of gear. So my resolve is I'm going to go back to trying to fix my original transmission. I'm going to adjust this and bring it in a little further. And I may actually even just take the stack apart while it's in here. I'm not sure. It's kind of, I want to use this as my blueprint for trying to put my original one back together. So, and I have a feeling afterwards what I'm going to do, because this case is so shitty, but I want to get a transmission together before I do it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bunch of cutaways on this so that you could actually put it back together, but see how all the gears work and clean it all up and whatnot, because it's really not good for anything else anyway. You know, I'll cut big holes in it, cut holes in the bottom, you can see the ring gear and whatnot, and I can make it like a functional demo. If I go to a VW show, it'd be kind of a cool thing. You can see how the inside of a transmission works, and I could probably even use it for like a mock-up stand for putting them in there, and say that way I can see where the forks are, how far they're moving and all that, kind of run it through its paces. So that's the thought. And a couple of guys, yes, I know VW Darren made a video saying that the wrong nose cone is on it. He thought I had a VW Beetle nose cone on it. I do not. They are both bus cones that are on it. Him and I are already aware of that. You look at the part number, it's a little hard to see. 211. Anything that starts with a 2 is bus only. This is a bus nose cone with a bus shifter fork, because it'll have the hole on the one side and not the other. And the one that's in the bus is the same thing too. So just kind of eliminate that part of the picture. That's not the issue. Right now, the shifter is disconnected from the bus. It's the shifter just flopping around in the front, and it is put manually in first gear. The emergency brake is on. I start it up, I go to let the clutch out in first gear, it tries to pop it out of first gear, it tries to pop it out of third gear. So it's in the transmission, it's not the drivetrain of the bus. So that's what I'm working with. I know it's hard because you guys are just seeing little snippets of it and you're trying to come up with solutions and comments, but I can only put so much in a video as far as what I'm talking about. And you know, and also sometimes I just forget on the top of that to include everything. You know, it's kind of hard to get all that stuff together. So that's what I think I'm gonna go try and do. Worst case scenario, my feeling is it may still pop out of first gear, and if that's the case, I'll be back to square one. It's still drivable. It's just that if I want to tow the boat or something like that, it puts a lot of stress on it. So you know, I would like to have it fixed and going through all this trouble, not for nothing. But if anything, again, it's an education. You don't know unless you try, and you start taking stuff apart and you start making yourself familiar with what you're looking at, and then the next time it comes down the road, you are already more familiar with it. So is that my little was that a rant? So yeah, that was the air gun I was using to try to get the back of the drums off, and it still wasn't happening. That's an air hammer, and it was not going. Again, I think that whole thing just sat underwater. Everything was just so soaked and rotted out. Water poured out of the reduction boxes. You see how black and cruddy everything is. I mean, some of this stuff is saveable, the gears and whatnot, which is good, because I do have the single cab, and I don't know what I'm going to find when I get into the single cab if I do have any problems. I do have one axle that's still good, you know, so I can take some of that stuff and I'll hold on to it for that one. I wanted to save the brake drums because that's probably a popular thing that goes, but I end up actually having to torch the face of it right off. There we go. That's how that one came free. I took the plasma cutter, I cut into it, and that kind of released it from the axle. And the other one, I actually cut a whole third of it right out. As you can see right there, I cut all that out of it with the plasma cutter, and it still wasn't coming out. Look at the water coming out of the back side of it. So they're junk. They're boat anchors now. But again, I only paid $50 for that transmission, so even just being for educational purposes, it does help out. And actually, I think all these gears are still good. I don't think any of these really have a problem. I think they'll clean up fine. So if I want to take pieces out of it, Or if I find when I'm putting mine back together, I do see something that's odd, I'll steal a piece out of it, but we'll see. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this one up. Again, thanks for watching, comment, subscribing. Take care. Bye.